Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, if you ask New Brunswickers whether they are better off than they were 4 years ago, there would be a resounding no. Tenants live in fear that their next rent increase will be the one they can't afford. Others have already been forced out onto the street. The number of people without a doctor or nurse practitioner continues to grow at an incredible rate. People now are choosing not to seek medical care because of excruciatingly long wait times in the ER. Mr. Speaker, those who form government are supposed to govern, but that's impossible when the Premier makes unilateral decisions without consulting his cabinet. This undermines the principles of democratic governance. So my question is, when did the Premier decide he could govern alone based on his personal notions and particular biases?
The Honourable Premier.
So, you know, Mr. Speaker, I can appreciate the rhetoric here in relation to how we're governing, what my characteristics are like and all that sort of thing, and I appreciate I'm the target for all this. But, Mr. Speaker, I go back to the whole concept, Mr. Speaker, of what we're seeing in our province and how we work together to make decisions that actually send the province in a direction that has us progressing. We've seen that everywhere, Mr. Speaker, and I guess the point that I would raise is that there comes a time after you discuss, you go through things, you understand the facts, that you make decisions and you move on. And we haven't been afraid to do that. And our province has benefited from it, Mr. Speaker. It's pretty clear, whether it be in any sector. And there are still issues, always issues. But when you talk about affordability, as the leader of the Green Party talked about some of the challenges, yeah, it's an issue. And that carbon tax is an issue. 20 cents a litre is an issue, Mr. Speaker, and everyone's feeling it, whether in groceries, whether in fuel. And so, Mr. Speaker, the leader of the Green Party is very focused on raising the affordability issues to our citizens.
The member for Fredericton-South and leader of his party.
Mr. Speaker, there's no working together on that side of the House. I can't imagine the Premier said that. Over the course of his tenure, 8 of his cabinet ministers lost confidence in this Premier. 8 parliamentarians dedicated to serving the people of New Brunswick. 8 decent people, intelligent, hard workers, committed to working collaboratively in cabinet to do their part in guiding the ship of state to serve the public interest. But this Premier prevented them from doing their jobs as members of cabinets, so they're either tendered their resignations or were turfed. So how does he work now? He's got his campaign manager in his office reviewing sex education programming. That's who he's working with. As my mother would say, the Premier needs to give his head a shake, and she said it, in fact. He's supposed to be the first among equals in cabinet. So, Mr. Speaker, how does the Premier explain that so many good, hard-working cabinet ministers have been marginalized by him, relegated to the backbenches, and left
Thank you, member. The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, to say this has been an easy year would be a bit of an understatement. There's no question about that. And you know, the issues that we've agreed to as government, and in terms of the decisions made on dealing with issues, Mr. Speaker, we have 85% support within our caucus, Mr. Speaker, at the time. So you move on. You don't always get consensus, and we didn't, Mr. Speaker. It was obvious we didn't. And it's unfortunate, and I feel bad about that some of my colleagues have retired or left because of that particular issue back in June of last year. Others were on the path to retirement in any case, Mr. Speaker, and you know who they are. But, Mr. Speaker, there comes a point. Well, the path of retirement, they've decided, you know, Minister of Health, you know the Minister of DNR, you know the folks that said, well, look, we're not going to be offering. Same with the Minister of Environment previously. So that's fair. I mean, you've had someone leave the caucus after a year or so, and maybe there'll be more. Yeah, maybe there'll be more. I understand there will be. But, you know, one of the things you do well is you don't talk about it in the public. So I got.
Thank you.